What I'm about to say is so controversial in the West, but at the same time so common knowledge in the East. I don't want to offend anyone. We only want to spread truth. So who would we be to not share what we found through personal experiences and studying with and from enlightened masters? Mahasiddhas, the Siddhis, the high priests, the secret orders. There's so much knowledge on this. There's wisdom on immortality out there. There's wisdom on becoming a god. Warning, this is highly esoteric, and this information can be highly dangerous as well. Avoid the dangerous practices and consult an experienced, confirmed in-person guru before taking this on fully. And if you're religious, I'm sure you can learn a lot too. There's absolutely no reason to report the video. So please bear with me, hang on, and let us explain what has always been true. Give me about an hour, and I'll show you step by step, without a shadow of doubt, full proof and a full guide on how to ascend, the many, many paths of ascension. The dark ones, the light ones. When I mention dark, I'll only briefly go over the dangers of them and why they're so evil and should not be done. By the way, this is esoteric, and a lot of this information has been passed on through high secret orders in mystic cultures, both ancient extinct cultures and living secret societies, orders and priesthoods. But based on what we personally follow, we will teach you about the Mahasiddhas and what they taught, how they lived, orders they established in India, North and South, Tibet, Nepal, the whole Himalayan region, and inarguably Africa. All of these ancient 84 Mahasiddhas had ascended to each become gods, established their presence around the 8th century. They are still living today, undeniably, all of them. Now, without further ado, let me cook. Listen, as the Library of Tahuti, we firmly stand by this statement I'm about to make. If you don't sit and meditate for at least 2 hours per day, you won't become God in this lifetime. And understand this clearly. 2 hours per session is the bare minimum on a godlike scale. The South Indian Siddhis who achieved immortal bodies, they meditated 8 hours straight. One Siddha's daily schedule went like this: meditation from 2 a.m. until 10 a.m., 8 unbroken hours in a cave. Sleep from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 3 hours. Then light hatha yoga stretches and movements for 1 hour. That was his entire day, every day, for years. You may have an intellectual realization of what is true. We are the all is one. The universe and everything is non-dual. You may have an intellectual understanding of all these capabilities and things I'm about to tell you about these great Mahasiddhas. But if you can't sit for 2 hours in a specific posture in complete control of your mind, with no care for how much time spent or how much to go, you might as well click off the video now. If you have the desire to build up to that point, then sure, we can continue. Start with 20 minutes. Build to 40. When you can sit for 1 hour without strain on body or mind, celebrate that. That is an extremely big step, a genuine achievement that most humans will never reach. Then push to 90 minutes, then 2 hours, then longer. But if this is mere intellectual curiosity, there's no point hearing about these gods and their teachings. Sincerely, a message from the Library of Tahuti. So if you're still here and you didn't click off, I'll continue. The first thing you need to understand is that becoming a living God means dissolving the illusion of separation between human and divine, between bounded form and unbounded consciousness, between death and immortality. The Mahasiddhas achieved something most spiritual seekers never even conceive of. They became what you already are beneath the layers of conditioning. Pure awareness manifesting as form, wielding the forces that construct reality itself. When these masters speak of still being alive today, they mean something specific that challenges your entire framework for understanding life and death. The 84 Mahasiddhas who achieved complete realization between the 8th and 12th centuries didn't die in the conventional sense. Some dissolved their bodies into rainbow light at the moment of death, leaving no corpse behind. Others transformed their physical forms into what the Tantric systems call the Vajra body, indestructible form that exists beyond the normal processes of decay. Still others maintain presence in subtle realms, appearing to practitioners who have the eyes to see them, transmitting teachings mind to mind across centuries. Tilopa told Naropa directly, "Mahamudra cannot be taught, but your devotion and intelligence qualify you to realize it. The whole cosmos is a seed of this realization." That teaching transmission happened in the 11th century. The lineage that flows from it still carries the same recognition today, past teacher to student in an unbroken chain. The Mahasiddhas live in that transmission, in the direct pointing that happens when a realized master shows you your own face. But more than this, several of the 84 achieved what the Tamil Siddhis called Kaya Siddhi, perfection of the body through alchemical transformation. They brought that realization into the densest level of manifestation, transforming flesh itself into a vehicle that serves consciousness indefinitely. Some texts claim that certain Siddhis still walk in physical form in remote regions, appearing only to those whose karma allows the meeting. Whether you take this literally or understand it as pointing to consciousness operating through multiple dimensions simultaneously, the principle remains the same. Death is not inevitable. The body can be transformed. The path to this transformation requires the most rigorous discipline, the most unflinching commitment, and those 2 hours minimum daily of sitting with yourself until every defense mechanism, every escape route, every comforting story dissolves. The Mahasiddhas operated outside the religious establishments of their time. Virupa was expelled from his monastery for drinking alcohol and eating meat. Saraha married a low-caste arrow maker and was exiled from his Brahmin community. Luipa ate fish guts from the Ganges. Tilopa pounded sesame for years before his breakthrough, while the scholarly monks looked down on him. They demonstrated that enlightenment, this living godhood, has zero connection to external purity, nothing to do with following rules, nothing to do with fitting into hierarchies that claim to mediate between you and the divine. What they discovered and proved through their attainments is that the human body is already the perfect instrument for awakening. The subtle energy system, the channels, the winds, the drops, when properly understood and worked with, becomes the alchemical laboratory where lead transmutes to gold, where the bounds immortal becomes unbounded. You work with what the Tantric systems call the 3 main channels. The central channel, Avadueti in Sanskrit, the supreme pathway where all dualities dissolve into primordial awareness, runs from the perineum straight up through the center of your body to the crown of your head. This is the axis of liberation itself. The right channel carries solar energy, heat, the masculine principle of skillful action. The left channel carries lunar energy, coolness, the feminine principle of wisdom. Your entire human experience is the interplay of these energies moving through this architecture. Virupa's core teaching in the Lambda system, the path and fruit inseparably united, emphasizes something radical that most spiritual systems completely miss. Samsara and nirvana are not 2 different realms. The cycle of suffering and the state of liberation are the same reality seen through different eyes. As he taught, the path and fruit are inseparable. Samsara is nirvana when seen through the eye of reversal. Most teachings tell you that you're here in bondage, enlightenment is somewhere else, and you need to traverse some distance to arrive. Virupa said that's the fundamental misunderstanding keeping you bound. The fruit, full awakening, Buddhahood, Godhood, is already present right now. The path doesn't lead to the fruit. The path reveals the fruit that was always here, always available, always what you are. In one of the most famous stories, Virupa stopped the sun in the sky. He sat in a tavern drinking beer, and when the owner asked for payment, Virupa said he'd pay when his shadow moved. He held the sun motionless for 3 days. The king had to come and pay his tab to release the land from eternal daylight. You can take this as literal magic, or you can understand what it points to. Mastery over the inner winds, the prana that moves through the subtle body, gives you mastery over time itself, over the elements, over the basic building blocks of experienced reality. Virupa also taught, in the tavern of ordinary life, drink the nectar of non-duality. Intoxication leads to sobriety of enlightenment. The tavern is your daily experience. The beer is whatever appears in your awareness right now. The intoxication is letting go of the sober grip of ego that insists on controlling, understanding, managing every aspect of existence. The sobriety that follows is the clear recognition of what remains when you stop. The technique he taught involves visualization combined with breath control. Sit in meditation posture. Visualize the central channel as a hollow tube of light, translucent blue, about the width of an arrow shaft, running straight through the center of your body. See it clearly in your mind's eye. Then draw the energies from the side channels into the central channel through specific breathing patterns. Inhale deeply through both nostrils, visualizing the breath energies moving up the side channels from the navel. Hold the breath. Contract the lower muscles, drawing the lower winds upward. Then push those energies forcefully into the central channel while exhaling slowly through the nostrils. The vital winds that normally scatter through 72,000 minor channels get concentrated into this one pathway. When the winds enter, abide, and dissolve in the central channel, something happens that changes everything. Dualistic thoughts dissolve. The subject-object split collapses. Bliss arises from the concentrated energy feeling ecstatic as it moves through the purified channel. Emptiness reveals itself as you directly perceive that all phenomena, including your own mind, are empty of inherent existence. They arise interdependently, without independent self-nature. This leads to clear light realization, where the mind's fundamental luminous nature reveals itself and all illusions dissolve through seeing them for what they are. Virupa also taught the sun and moon union practice. Balance the solar energy in the right channel with the lunar energy in the left channel to stabilize what's called the drop, bindu in Sanskrit, at the heart center. This drop is an actual energetic substance in the subtle body, the concentrated essence of your vital force. Stabilizing it through balancing the channels produces what they called the Vajra body, indestructible form, a state where the physical body transforms at the subtle level and no longer decays normally. The caution is real and dangerous. Virupa himself warned that misusing these energy practices causes what they called wind diseases. Physical and mental imbalances that can manifest as insanity, paralysis, chronic pain, psychosis. You cannot start forcing energies through channels without first stabilizing the mind through shamatha, calm-abiding meditation. Without that foundation, you'll encounter what the texts call demonic illusions or energy blockages that can destroy your health, your sanity, your life. This is why the 2-hour requirement is non-negotiable. You need that time to build genuine stability. You need to be able to sit for 2 hours with minimal distraction before you even think about working with the channels and winds. Start with shamatha. Follow your breath. Count if it helps. When mind wanders, bring it back. When it wanders again, bring it back again. Do this until you can maintain steady attention for the full 2 hours. That foundation is everything. What does 2 hours of meditation actually build? It builds the capacity to sit with discomfort without fleeing. It builds the capacity to watch thoughts arise and dissolve without identifying with them. It builds the capacity to remain present with the raw energy of being alive without needing to convert it into stories, dramas, achievements, or escapes. Every Mahasiddha went through a phase of this foundational work before they were ready for the advanced Tantric practices. Tilopa pounded sesame for years before his breakthrough. Naropa studied for decades before his trials began. Take some time right now and consider where you are with your practice. Have you ever sat for even 1 hour straight? No scrolling, no reading, no guided meditations. Just sitting with your own mind. If you haven't, then you know where to start. Drop a comment about your current meditation capacity, where you struggle, what keeps you from committing fully. Hit the like if you're tracking with me so far. Naropa's path was different but equally uncompromising. Born a prince in Bengal in 1016, he had everything: wealth, education, status. He became one of the most renowned scholars at Vikramashila Monastery, the Harvard of Buddhist learning at the time. But intellectual knowledge left him empty. When a Dakini appeared to him, an enlightened feminine deity embodying primordial wisdom that cuts through all illusion, she asked if he understood the words or the meaning of what he studied. He said he understood the words. She laughed. When he claimed to understand the meaning too, she wept and told him he was lying. That encounter shattered his comfortable scholarly existence. He left everything to find his teacher Tilopa. The search took years. When he finally found him, Tilopa put him through what the tradition calls the 12 major and 12 minor hardships. Naropa was beaten, burned, thrown off cliffs, starved, humiliated. He nearly died multiple times. Why? Because intellectual realization means nothing. You can understand non-duality conceptually and still be completely bound by the illusion of separation. The trials dismantled every survival strategy, every defense mechanism, every way Naropa had learned to avoid the raw truth of existence. Naropa later taught from this direct experience. Endure the hardships as fuel for the fire of realization. What seems like suffering is the doorway to bliss emptiness. The grinding down of every false refuge, every comfortable hiding place. The ego constructs elaborate shelters from the truth. The trials burn those shelters to ash until there's nowhere left to hide. Through this process, he received what became known as the 6 Yogas of Naropa, a complete tantric system for achieving enlightenment in one lifetime. These practices are precise, systematic, and when done correctly, they produce specific results that can be verified in direct experience. The first is tummo, the yoga of inner heat. Bliss is generated through breath retention and visualization of a fiery drop at the navel. Sit in meditation posture, spine straight, hands in meditation mudra, or resting on knees. Visualize a tiny blazing drop of fire at your navel chakra, about 4 finger widths below your navel. Red, hot, intensely bright, the size of a small seed. Breathe in deeply through both nostrils, filling the lungs completely. Then swallow the breath down, pushing it below the navel with a conscious muscular action. Contract the lower muscles, the perineum and lower abdomen, pulling the lower winds up to meet the descending breath. Hold this, creating pressure, stoking the fire at the navel like bellows fanning flames. The heat intensifies. You feel it physically, real warmth spreading from the navel. The drop begins to melt upward through the central channel. As it melts and rises, it creates waves of bliss moving through your body, touching each chakra as it ascends. This melts blockages in the channels and creates a heat so intense that advanced practitioners can sit naked in Himalayan snowstorms and melt the snow around them through body heat alone. Practice this daily. Start with short sessions, 5 minutes. Build to 10, 15, 30. When genuine heat arises, when warmth spreads through your body from visualization and breath alone, you know something real is happening. The bliss states you access through this practice make ordinary pleasure look like nothing, and that bliss, held in awareness without grasping, reveals the empty nature of all experience. Through the yoga of inner heat, melt the elements within. This is the swift path to the clear light of death. The elements he refers to are the 5 basic constituents of form: earth, water, fire, air, space. At death, these elements dissolve in sequence. Earth dissolves into water. The body loses solidity and strength. Water dissolves into fire. Fluids dry and heat concentrates. Fire dissolves into air. Warmth leaves the body. Air dissolves into space. Breath ceases. Space dissolves into consciousness, and in that moment, clear light appears. Most people miss it completely because they've never trained to recognize it. Tummo practice trains you to experience this dissolution consciously while alive, so when death comes, you recognize the clear light and merge with it, instead of being swept into unconscious rebirth. The second yoga is the illusory body, training to perceive all forms as dreamlike rainbow appearances empty of substance. Naropa said, "The illusory body is like a reflection in a mirror trained to see all phenomena as such, and liberation arises in the bardo." During waking hours, meditate on the body's emptiness. Look at your hand right now. It appears solid. But quantum physics tells you it's mostly empty space, particles vibrating in fields of energy. The Tantric view goes further. The hand appears only in dependence on causes and conditions, on conceptual designation. It has no inherent existence independent of these factors. Like a rainbow, appearing vividly yet empty of substance, unable to be grasped. Practice this throughout the day. Look at objects and see them as rainbow-like appearances. Touch things and notice how the solidity is an interpretation, not an inherent quality. Watch your own body in a mirror and recognize it as a shimmering display of energy and awareness. Practice correctly, you start to experience your body and the world as transparent, luminous, not quite solid. Objects lose their grip on you. You see through the illusion of their inherent existence. The third yoga is dream yoga, the yoga of nocturnal awareness, extending awareness into sleep states, becoming lucid in dreams, then using those dreams as a tantric training ground. Before sleep, set the intention: I will recognize I'm dreaming. Visualize a red drop, a luminous sphere of light, at your throat chakra as you fall asleep. Maintain awareness of this visualization as you drift into unconsciousness. In dreams, train to notice inconsistencies that reveal your dreaming. The physics don't work right. You can fly. You walk through walls. You transform objects. Practice the same recognitions you practice during the waking illusory body yoga. All of this is illusion, dream, empty appearance. Why practice dream yoga? The dream state is closer to the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. Maintaining awareness through dreams trains you to maintain awareness through death itself. And maintaining awareness through death means you don't get swept into unconscious rebirth driven by karmic winds. You can choose your next manifestation or step off the wheel entirely. The fourth yoga is clear light, merging consciousness with the mind's innate luminosity. At the moment of death, or in very deep meditation, there's a recognition of what's called the ground luminosity, the basic nature of mind itself appearing like the clear autumn sky at dawn. Most people miss it completely. Too subtle, and they're too identified with the content of consciousness rather than consciousness itself. This yoga trains you to recognize it and merge with it. That merging is the doorway to what the Mahasiddhas called Buddhahood. the living God state. Practice this by recognizing the clear light in deep sleep, in the moment between sleeping and waking, in gaps between thoughts. Learn to identify the luminous, empty awareness that's always present, unchanging, aware of all states but not caught in any of them. When a thought dissolves before the next one arises, there's a gap. In that gap is clear light. Rest there. Recognize it. Become familiar with it until you can rest in it at will. The fifth is Vajra, transference of consciousness. Learn to eject your consciousness from the crown of your head at will. At death, instead of consciousness leaving through one of the lower apertures, which leads to lower rebirths according to the Tantric maps, you shoot it out the crown into higher realms or into union with enlightened mind. Visualize the central channel opening at the crown like a chimney. Practice shooting your awareness up and out with a sharp exhalation and the syllable HIK or fat. Done correctly, you feel a tingling or opening sensation at the crown. Some practitioners develop a small indentation or even a literal opening at the crown from repeated practice, a physical sign of the channel opening. The sixth is Bardo Yoga, navigating the post-death visions as tantric opportunities. The text describes specific appearances that occur after death in stages. Peaceful deities appearing as beautiful luminous forms, wrathful deities appearing as terrifying powerful beings, lights, sounds, visions both sublime and horrifying. The key teaching is that all of these are your own mind's contents manifesting in heightened form. They're not external beings judging you or determining your fate. Recognize them as projections of your own consciousness, as empty appearances, and they liberate on contact. Fail to recognize them, and you're swept into reactive patterns of attraction and aversion that lead to rebirth. Naropa nearly died from tummo practice. The texts record this clearly. He pushed too hard without proper breath mastery and almost burned himself out from the inside. The caution is real. These practices lead to physical harm if approached without gradual development. Energy imbalances can manifest as madness or illness. You can activate energies you can't control and fry your nervous system. But done correctly, with proper foundation and gradual progression, these methods produce the siddhis, the perfections, the signs of accomplishment. Naropa attained them. He demonstrated abilities that conventional physics says are impossible. And he passed them to his student Marpa, who passed them to Milarepa, who passed them to Gampopa, creating the Kaju lineage that still exists today, still transmitting these methods, still producing practitioners who achieve rainbow body. The dark paths need to be addressed directly because the danger is real and the temptation is strong. Some practitioners attempt to force Kundalini awakening without proper preparation. Kundalini, the serpent power coiled at the base of the spine, is real. When awakened, it rises through the central channel and produces radical transformation. But if the channels aren't clear, if the mind isn't stable, if the practitioner mistakes intensity for realization, Kundalini creates what's called Kundalini syndrome. Uncontrolled energy surges, psychotic episodes, chronic pain, sexual dysfunction, inability to ground or function in ordinary reality. A student I know of, not personally but through reliable lineage sources, forced Kundalini through concentration and forceful breathing without completing the preliminary purifications. Within weeks, he experienced energy moving uncontrollably through his spine at random times, leaving him unable to sleep, unable to relate to others without feeling like his skin was on fire. He spent 2 years recovering, working with experienced teachers to slowly rebalance the energies he'd prematurely activated. 2 years of suffering because he wanted the experience before building the foundation to hold it. Some paths use sexual practices with consorts to generate bliss and manipulate the drops. These practices are legitimate in their authentic context, practiced by stable practitioners under direct guidance from realized teachers who've completed the preliminary trainings. But taken out of context, practice based on books or videos, without transmission, without understanding the view, without the ethical foundation, it becomes spiritual bypassing at best and sexual exploitation at worst. Predatory teachers use Tantra as justification for abuse. Practitioners get addicted to energetic highs while their actual lives fall apart. Some paths work with what are called left-hand tantric methods. Breaking taboos deliberately, consuming meat and alcohol in ritual contexts, transgressing conventional morality to demonstrate that enlightenment transcends rules. Virupa drank alcohol. Saraha ate meat. But they did so from a place of complete realization, where there was no one to be defiled, where all substances were recognized as empty. Imitating that externally without the internal realization means you're indulging in your own patterns and calling it spirituality. You accumulate karma while thinking you're transcending it. The darkest paths involve manipulating energies to gain power over others. Sorcery, black magic, practices designed to control, harm, or dominate. These exist in every culture that works with subtle energies. The techniques work in the sense that you can learn to affect others energetically, but every action leaves its mark on the one who acts. Using these methods imprints your being with the very patterns you're wielding. You become what you practice. Practice manipulation and harm, even if it seems to work in the short term, and you bind yourself to suffering far more deeply than ordinary unconscious living ever could. The test is simple. Does the practice lead to greater freedom or greater bondage? Does it dissolve the illusion of separation or reinforce it? Does it open your heart or close it? The authentic tantric path uses everything as fuel for awakening, but the direction is always toward recognition of the empty, luminous nature of all experience, toward dissolving the separate self, toward compassion that arises naturally when all beings are recognized as expressions of the same awareness. If you're feeling the pull toward shortcuts, toward the dramatic and dangerous practices, recognize that pull as the ego wanting to be special, wanting to be the one who achieves extraordinary spates. That wanting is the obstacle itself. What you seek is not extraordinary, the most ordinary thing in existence. What's present right now, aware of these words, aware of this moment. The God you want to become is what you already are, beneath the layers of misidentification. Now let's get even more practical. Far from civilization, find a place where you can't hear traffic, can't see buildings, can't access your phone. A forest, a mountain, a desert. Go there alone. Set up a simple shelter or find a cave if possible. Bring minimal supplies, water, basic food, a meditation cushion or mat. Establish a schedule. Wake before dawn, 4 a.m. or earlier. Sit in meditation posture, facing east. Begin with prostrations if your body can handle them. Full body prostrations, hands together at your heart. Raise them overhead. Then lower your entire body to the ground, arms extended forward, forehead touching earth. This purifies pride and softens the body. Then sit. 2 hours minimum. Watch the sun rise while maintaining meditation. Watch thoughts arise and dissolve. Work with the breath, with the channels, with whatever practice you've been given or are ready for. After 2 hours, do slow, mindful movement. Hatha yoga, tai chi, qigong, martial arts, whatever keeps the energy flowing through the body without scattering the mind. 1 hour. Then eat a simple meal, mindfully, tasting each bite without distraction. Then sit again, another 2 hours. Then walking meditation in nature. Feel the earth under your feet. Notice the space between trees, the quality of light, the sounds of birds and wind. Remain in meditation while moving, maintaining awareness. Then sit again, 2 hours. You're up to 6 hours of formal sitting now, plus movement practice. As the sun sets, do another session. 2 hours. That's 8 hours of meditation, the same as that South Indian Siddha. Sleep when exhausted, maybe 3 to 4 hours. Wake and begin again. Do this for at least a week. Better, a month. Better still, 3 months. A full retreat where you have no responsibilities, no social obligations, no distractions, just you and your mind and the practices. Transformation happens here. Everything you've been avoiding surfaces. Boredom, restlessness, fear, grief, rage, all the suppressed material will come up. Sit with it. Let it arise fully. Watch it dissolve. Don't act it out. Don't suppress it. Don't elaborate stories around it. Let it move through awareness like weather moving through sky. In that intensity, in that isolation, the practices that seemed theoretical become visceral. The channels become actual sensations in your body. The winds move as tingles and currents of energy flowing through specific pathways. Tummo generates heat that makes you sweat in cool weather. Dreams become so vivid they're indistinguishable from waking reality. The boundary between self and environment dissolves completely, and you can't tell where your awareness ends and the forest begins. Test this. See the difference between practicing 2 hours in your apartment with your phone nearby and practicing 8 hours in wilderness with no escape. The quality of mind, the depth of stability, the speed of progress, they're incomparable. The Mahasiddhas practiced in cremation grounds, in forests, in mountain caves. They removed every crutch, every comfort, every distraction. They faced the raw nature of mind with nothing to hide behind. That's what accelerates the path. If a full retreat isn't possible right now, then commit to regular, shorter retreats. 1 weekend per month in nature. Find a place, even a state park with camping, where you can practice intensively for 2 days. Build up your capacity. Eventually, arrange your life to make longer retreats possible. Save money, clear obligations. Prioritize this above everything else. You have to. Becoming a living God requires everything. Most people won't do it. Most people hear these teachings, feel inspired for a week, then slide back into comfortable distraction. Are you one of the few who cannot turn away? That question gets answered through action, through commitment, through whether you actually do what I'm describing or just think about doing it. Comment below if you've ever done a solo retreat in nature. How long? What happened? What stopped you if you haven't? And subscribe if you want to continue going deeper into these teachings with us, because we're releasing multiple videos per week on this path. Niguma brought something essential to the Tantric path, what the texts call Dakini wisdom. She was Naropa's contemporary. Some say his sister, some say his consort. She founded the Shangpa Kagyu lineage with teachings that emphasize the Dakini principle. Dakinis are enlightened feminine deities, sky-goers, beings who embody primordial wisdom in dynamic feminine form. They appear in visions, in dreams, sometimes in physical form to transmit teachings to those ready to receive them. They move through the sky of awareness, cutting through illusion with direct perception. Niguma taught, cut through the 4 demons with the sword of illusion. The Dakini's wisdom arises from within. The 4 demons are the 4 maras in Buddhist terminology. The demon of the aggregates, identification with body and mind is self. The demon of afflictive emotions, the passions that cloud clarity. The demon of death, the fear that creates grasping at life. The demon of divine pride, the subtle ego that claims realization while remaining bound. The sword of illusion is recognizing all 4 as empty appearances, cutting through them by seeing their lack of inherent existence. Her 6 yogas parallel Naropa's but with distinct emphases. The severance practice involves visualizing offering your body to demons and hungry spirits. Consciousness ejects from your body, rises above it as awareness. See your body below as a corpse. Then visualize cutting it into pieces with a curved knife, the Kartika blade of wisdom. Throw the pieces into a skull cauldron where they cook and transform into nectar. Offer this nectar to all beings, especially the ones you fear, the hungry ghosts with distended bellies and needle throats, the demons representing your own psychological shadows, the forces you've spent your life avoiding. This practice produces a visceral recognition that you are not this form. Offering your flesh, your blood, your organs thousands of times in visualization breaks the fear of death. The ego, which fundamentally relies on preserving the body-mind unit, can't maintain its stranglehold. Do this practice at night, ideally in frightening places. Cemeteries, if you can access them safely. Abandoned buildings. Dark forests. Places where fear arises naturally. Use that fear as fuel. Cut through it by offering everything, holding nothing back. The white drop meditation involves circulating subtle essences through the channels for bliss generation. Neguma taught, circulate the drops like moons in the sky. This feminine essence grants the rainbow body. The texts describe an actual substance that exists in the subtle body. The white drop resides at the crown, associated with the masculine principle of method and compassion. The red drop resides at the navel, associated with the feminine principle of wisdom and emptiness. Learning to circulate these through breath and visualization generates bliss states that transcend ordinary pleasure entirely. Sit in meditation. Visualize the white drop at your crown as a luminous pearl, cool, bright, radiating moonlight. Breathe in slowly and draw it down the central channel deliberately. As it descends through each chakra, waves of bliss ripple through your body. Crown to throat, bliss arises. Throat to heart, greater bliss. Heart to navel, supreme bliss. When it reaches the red drop at the navel, the two drops touch and merge, and you experience what's called innate bliss, the most subtle and profound bliss that reveals the nature of mind itself. Hold this state, recognizing the bliss as empty, not pushing it away, letting it reveal the inseparability of bliss and emptiness. Then reverse the process. Draw the red drop upward through the central channel to meet the white drop at the crown. Same progression of bliss states in reverse. Cycle this. Down and up, masculine and feminine energies in union, emptiness recognition. Niguma taught that enlightenment is genderless. The Tantric path is open to women and men equally. The body, whether male or female, contains the same subtle architecture. The channels, the winds, the drops operate according to the same principles. What matters is recognizing the empty, blissful nature of mind, and that recognition doesn't depend on your biological sex or social identity. The stories say she could fly through the air, her body becoming light enough to move through space. She could manifest in multiple forms simultaneously, appearing to different students in different locations at the same time. She appeared to her primary student Kyempo Nalja as a youthful Dakini floating in space, surrounded by rainbow light, her body transparent and radiant. She transmitted the teachings directly, mind to mind, in a way that transcended normal conceptual communication. The Shangpa lineage that emerged from her teachings is sophisticated, systematic, and still produces realized practitioners today. Sukhasiddhi's story demolishes any idea that enlightenment belongs only to the young, the male, the educated, or the religiously trained. She was a housewife, a mother. At 60 years old, her family banished her for giving away their last rice to a beggar. She had nothing. she wandered to Odiyana, the land of Dakinis, and survived by brewing beer from grains to sell. During that brewing process, something shifted. She began to see the fermentation as a metaphor for the inner alchemical process. The karmic seeds churning, the energies fermenting, the resulting elixir as Amrita, the nectar of deathless awareness. She sat in a cave and meditated, applying the principles spontaneously, without formal training. Her body transformed over weeks of practice. The wrinkles smoothed, her hair darkened. She emerged looking 30 years younger, radiating light, having achieved complete realization. Sukhasiddhi taught, bliss is the base of all. Brew it from the grains of experience, and age dissolves into eternal youth. The teaching points to something most seekers miss. Bliss is the fundamental quality of awareness itself when freed from contraction and resistance. Suffering is bliss misperceived, blocked bliss, bliss contracted into painful patterns. Learning to circulate the subtle essences through the channels taps into an inherent joy that exists independent of circumstances. Direct work with the energy of being alive, recognizing its fundamental blissful quality beneath the layers of reactivity and grasping. The technique involves focusing on the four main chakras as brewing vats, alchemical vessels: crown, throat, heart, navel. Inhale deeply, filling the lungs completely. Hold the breath and visualize stirring the vital drops at each chakra in clockwise spirals, like stirring a cauldron. This generates waves of bliss that literally dissolve the mechanisms of decay and aging in the body at the energetic level. The practice progresses through 3 refinements: gross purification of physical ailments and blockages, subtle clearing of emotional patterns and psychological knots, and most secret merging with emptiness for deathless stability beyond birth and death. Tilopa was a sesame pounder, the lowest work available, manual labor looked down upon by scholars. The story says he pounded sesame by day to earn food and practiced in solitude by night. His teaching to Naropa was brutally simple: do nothing with the body but relax. Shut tight the mouth and remain silent. Empty the mind and think of nothing. Like a hollow bamboo, rest at ease with your body. This is Mahamudra, the great seal, the ultimate view. You don't need to create some special state. You don't need to achieve some distant realization. What's looking through your eyes right now is already fully awake, already Buddha, already divine. The search itself is the only thing obscuring what's already present. But can you actually do nothing? Can you sit for 2 hours without manipulating your experience, without trying to get somewhere, without evaluating whether you're doing it right, without the subtle grasping that wants to achieve the state you think you should be in? Tilopa also said, look into the mirror of your mind, which is Mahamudra, the mysterious home of the Dakinis. The mirror doesn't judge what it reflects. It doesn't prefer beautiful images over ugly ones. It reflects everything equally, remains unchanged by what passes before it. Your awareness is like that mirror. Thoughts, sensations, emotions all arise and dissolve in the mirror of awareness without staining it, without changing its fundamental nature. And he taught, the innate is uncontrived and effortless. It is the great seal of Mahamudra. The innate is what you are before you try to be anything. Before spiritual practice, before personal development, before the entire project of becoming someone. That innate nature is already perfect, already complete, already free. The Mahamudra tradition describes 4 stages. 1, pointedness, when the mind can rest steadily on a single object or in awareness without scattering. Simplicity, when the elaborate conceptual structures dissolve and you recognize the mind's empty nature directly. 1, taste, when all experiences, pleasant or painful, pure or impure, reveal the same taste of awareness, the same empty, luminous quality. Non-meditation, when there's nothing to meditate on. No meditator, no goal, just spontaneous presence that doesn't depend on maintaining any particular state. Most practitioners never reach past one-pointedness. They develop concentration, but they never make the leap into the direct recognition of mind's nature. That leap requires what Tilopa showed Naropa through the 12 trials. You have to be broken open. Every defense mechanism, every comfort, every way you avoid the raw truth of existence has to be dismantled. Otherwise, you create a spiritual version of the same ego, who's good at business or relationships or whatever other identity structure you'd constructed. Kashmir Shaivism approaches this same recognition from a different angle, emphasizing what Abhinavagupta called spanda, the divine pulsation. Every breath you take is spanda, every heartbeat, every thought arising and dissolving. Recognizing this pulsation as consciousness itself, as Shiva's creative power, makes everything sacred, everything practice, everything the divine dancing with itself. Abhinavagupta described 36 tattvas, levels of manifestation from pure consciousness down to earth element. Each level is a contraction of the previous, a stepping down of frequency until the infinite becomes bound in finite form. But every level, the fundamental nature is still Shiva, still consciousness, still divine. The practices work by reversing the contraction, recognizing consciousness at every level, dissolving the identification with the grosser levels until you rest as pure awareness itself. One specific practice from the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra demonstrates this with startling directness. The text gives 112 dharanas, concentration practices, each one a doorway to the same recognition. One of the most powerful and least discussed is the practice of recognizing the gap between two breaths. In that momentary pause after the exhalation completes and before the inhalation begins, there is a gap. In that gap, the mind naturally falls silent. No thoughts arise. No sense of self arises. There is just awareness, present, luminous, empty of content. The practice is simple. Breathe naturally. Watch for the gap. When you find it, rest there. Don't try to extend it. Don't try to maintain it. Just recognize it. That gap is the doorway to what you truly are. The same gap exists after the inhalation, before the exhalation. The same gap exists between thoughts, between sensations, between sounds. Reality is full of these gaps, these cracks in the structure of experience where pure awareness shines through unobstructed. Practice this right now. Breathe out completely. Notice the pause before the next breath begins. In that pause, where are you? What are you? There's awareness, but no thought of, I am aware. There's presence, but no sense of being someone who's present. That's it. That's what's been here all along beneath the constant activity of mind. Kashmir Shaivism calls this pratibha, the flash of recognition, the sudden knowing that has no object, the direct perception of consciousness by consciousness. You can't make it happen through effort. You can only create conditions where it's more likely to occur and then remain open, receptive. Like a hollow bamboo, as Tilopa said. Saraha, another of the great Mahasiddhas, sang this recognition in his Doha songs. He taught, the mind is like a wild elephant. Tame it with the arrow of awareness, and it roams free in emptiness. The wild elephant is thought restless, destructive, trampling everything in its path. The arrow of awareness is direct looking, turning attention back on itself. When the elephant is struck by that arrow, it doesn't die. It becomes calm, free to roam without causing harm, moving through the emptiness that was always its true nature. Saraha also sang, all things are empty of inherent existence, sing this truth, and the song becomes your liberation. The singing is important. When you sing the truth of emptiness, when you live it in every gesture and word and breath, that expression itself is liberation happening. And he taught a principle that sounds paradoxical but is verified in direct experience. The same mind that creates bondage, when recognized for what it is, becomes the means of liberation. You don't need a different mind. You don't need to get rid of thoughts or achieve some special state of no mind. Recognize the empty nature of the thoughts that are already arising, and those same thoughts liberate themselves on arising. The prison and the key are the same thing seen from different angles. This brings us to the body and how karma actually works in the subtle structure. The body is where karma is stored. Every experience you've resisted, every emotion you've suppressed, every trauma you've survived without processing, these leave marks in the tissue, in the fascia, in the nervous system, in the energetic structure. You can see this in how people hold tension. Shoulders up around ears from years of anxiety. Chest collapsed from years of grief. Jaw clenched from years of unexpressed anger. These physical patterns are the visible signs of energetic blockages in the channels. Practicing the yogas, working with the breath and the visualizations, releases these blockages. Energy starts to flow through areas that have been frozen for years or lifetimes. And when it flows, the stored material releases. You might cry for no apparent reason. You might feel rage. You might shake or laugh or feel terror. Purification. The karmic seeds are ripening and dissolving. Let them move through without acting them out, without suppressing them, without creating stories about what they mean. They arise. You feel them fully. They dissolve, and you're lighter, clearer, more free. Retreats create the container for this. The isolation, the intensive practice schedule, everything surfaces. Process in weeks what might take years of normal living to integrate, but you need support. A teacher who knows the territory, who can tell the difference between productive purification and destabilization that's going too far, too fast. A structure that holds you when you want to run, when it gets too intense, when every defense mechanism is screaming at you to stop. The progression is gradual for most practitioners. Start with basic shamatha, calm abiding. Learn to rest attention on the breath without constant distraction. Then move to vipassana, insight practice, where you investigate the nature of experience directly. See thoughts arising and dissolving without substance. See sensations changing moment to moment. See the self as a construct, a convention, not an inherent entity. These insights prepare you for the tantric practices which accelerate everything. With a stable foundation in shamatha and vipassana, when you've had glimpses of emptiness and non-self, then working with the channels and winds becomes safe. Powerful states arise, bliss, visions, energetic movements, but you're not attached to them. You see them as appearances in awareness, empty of inherent existence, useful as tools but not as goals. The same principle that operates in the subtle body operates at the universal level. This is where the teaching of Hermes Trismegistus, who is Tahuti, thoughts later incarnate, becomes relevant. The Hermetic principle of correspondent states, as above, so below, as below, so above. The microcosm reflects the macrocosm. Your body is a miniature universe. The same forces that move planets and stars move through your channels. The same consciousness that speaks galaxies into existence is what's aware through your eyes right now. Working with the subtle body means working with the template of all manifestation. The principle of vibration states that nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Your thoughts are vibrations at a particular frequency. Your emotions are vibrations. Your physical body is vibration, particles moving in fields of force, creating the appearance of solidity. The practices work by consciously adjusting these vibrations. Raise the frequency through purification, through stabilizing awareness, through generating bliss. As the frequency rises, the dense patterns that create suffering and bondage cannot sustain themselves. They dissolve like ice melting into water. The principle of polarity teaches that opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. Hot and cold are both temperature. Love and hate are both intense connection. The solar and lunar channels, masculine and feminine energies, are both life force expressing through different qualities. Balancing them in the central channel transcends the polarity while including both. The union that's been called the alchemical marriage, the reconciliation of opposites that produces the philosopher's stone, the indestructible Vajra body, the immortal form. These teachings are not separate. Kashmir Shaivism, Vajrayana Buddhism, Hermetic philosophy, Kemetic mystery schools, they're all describing the same territory from different angles, using different maps. The supreme reality is one. Non-dual awareness, the infinite consciousness that manifests as everything, is recognized through different techniques in different cultures, but what's being recognized is identical. The immortal body that the Siddhis achieved represents transformation of the body into a vehicle of consciousness that doesn't decay through the normal processes of aging and death. The texts describe specific signs. The body becomes lighter. The need for food decreases. Sleep requirements drop. The skin takes on a luminous quality. Physical strength increases. The senses sharpen. These are signs that the elemental structure is being refined, that earth is becoming water, water becoming fire, fire becoming air, air becoming space, space dissolving into pure consciousness. At a certain point of practice, the body stops being an obstruction and becomes an expression of awakened awareness. Every cell becomes conscious. The usual boundary between self and environment becomes permeable. You feel the energy of others, of places, of objects. You develop what look like supernatural abilities, but are actually natural capacities of consciousness freed from its usual constraints. You know things you have no normal way of knowing. You affect situations without physical action. You heal through presence alone. But these siddhis, these powers, are side effects, not goals. Chasing them creates massive obstacles. The ego gets inflated. Identification as someone special, someone with powers, and that identification is subtle bondage. The Mahasiddhas demonstrated abilities to prove the teachings, to show what's possible, to inspire confidence in the path. But their actual attainment was the recognition of their nature as boundless awareness, not the powers that came with it. Milarepa, Mapa student, meditated in caves for years until his skin turned green from eating only nettles. His body became so light from the practices that he could fly, the stories say. Whether you take that literally or as metaphor for the lightness of being that comes from releasing all grasping, the point is the same. He gave up everything, every comfort, every conventional achievement, every relationship to pursue realization with complete single-pointed devotion. And he achieved it. He demonstrated the rainbow body at death, the physical form dissolving into light, leaving no corpse, a sign of complete transformation of the elements back into their luminous essence. Can you do that? Can you give up your life as you know it to pursue awakening with that level of commitment? Most people won't. They have responsibilities, relationships, work, pleasures they're not willing to sacrifice, and that's where they are. The path has levels. Practice according to your capacity and circumstances, but be honest about where you are. Don't pretend you're pursuing full awakening if you're only willing to practice 20 minutes a day when it's convenient. The 2-hour requirement is based on what actually produces results. You can maintain a spiritual identity, read books, watch videos, have insights, all with minimal practice. But transforming your being at the deepest level, clearing the channels, stabilizing the winds, achieving the signs of accomplishment, that requires sustained intensive practice over long periods. 2 hours daily is the minimum threshold where transformation accelerates beyond maintenance. Think of it like building muscle. Light exercise maintains basic health, but transforming your body significantly requires intensity and consistency that goes beyond casual effort. The same principle applies to consciousness work, except the stakes are infinitely higher. Liberation from the cycle of birth and death, from unconscious bondage to patterns that have controlled you for lifetimes. The concept of rebirth, whether taken literally or metaphorically, points to something verifiable in direct experience. You die and are reborn multiple times within this lifetime. The person you were at 5 years old died. The teenager you were died. The young adult you were died. Each version dissolved and a new configuration arose, driven by the same underlying patterns. The same karmic seed seeking expression, literal rebirth across lifetimes, is this same process on a larger scale. The karmic seeds, the unresolved patterns, the energetic imprints don't dissolve at physical death. They seek a new form to continue expressing through. Liberation means interrupting that cycle. Burn the seeds through awareness. Dissolve the patterns through practice. Recognize yourself as the awareness in which all forms arise and dissolve, untouched by the changes, free from the compulsion to continuously manifest in bound form. The practices accelerate that dissolution. They walk directly with the energy structure that holds the karmic imprints. Clearing the channels clears the pathways through which karma manifests. Stabilizing the winds in the central channel disrupts the mechanism that creates dualistic experience and the reactive patterns that accumulate karma. This is precise work, more like surgery or engineering than vague spirituality. Working with actual energy, actual anatomical structures in the subtle body, producing measurable results. The signs of progress are specific: physical heat from tummo, lucid dreams from dream yoga, the channels as distinct sensations from the breath work, bliss states from the drop meditation, awareness through sleep from clear light practice. These are concrete markers, not subjective interpretations. Consciousness is the hinge. With it, everything transforms. Without it, the most advanced techniques become mechanical repetition that changes nothing fundamental. Visualize channels for years and achieve nothing if there's no awareness present, if you're just going through motions while your mind wanders. Prostrations, mantras, elaborate rituals, all without consciousness, become empty gestures. But bring total awareness to the simplest act, breathing in and breathing out, and it becomes the whole path. Notice the breath moving in, the slight pause, the breath moving out, the slight pause. In that naked awareness of this simple process, there's no self, no doer, just the bare fact of breathing happening, awareness present with it. Rest there. That's the heart of the practice. Everything else, all the elaborate visualizations and techniques, they serve that basic recognition. They give the mind something to work with, a structure that leads back to simplicity. But you can arrive at simplicity directly. Sit and just be aware of being aware. Notice the space in which all experience arises. Recognize yourself as that space, presence which is here before thoughts, during thoughts, after thoughts, unchanged by any content. When Tilopa hit Naropa with his sandal, when he gave him the pointing out instruction directly, the teaching was transmitted without words. Something clicked. Naropa recognized what he'd been seeking was what was seeking, that awareness itself is the goal, and it was never absent, never far away, never other than what he already is. That click can happen right now. Not by trying to make it happen, but by stopping the search, by relaxing the effort, by simply noticing what's already here. What's aware of these words? What's present before any thought arises? What remains when the thoughts fall silent? Look directly at that. Don't think about it. Look with awareness at awareness itself, like the eye seeing itself. Impossible, yet the seeing is undeniable. That undeniable seeing, that self-recognizing awareness, is what the Mahasiddhas realized fully and stabilized completely. Glimpses are happening for you right now. The path is stabilizing those glimpses until recognition becomes constant, until there's no falling back into identification with thoughts and sensations and the story of being a separate self moving through time toward death. Stabilization happens through practice. through sitting when you don't want to sit, through staying present when you want to escape, through meeting discomfort without resistance, through recognizing awareness again and again and again until the recognition becomes effortless, spontaneous, continuous. Through 2 hours daily minimum of this work, this looking, this resting, this being what you are. The teachings exist to point you back to this. Every practice, every technique, every system we've explored, all in service of your own direct recognition. You're not being asked to believe anything. Look, investigate, test these teachings against your direct experience. If they don't hold up, discard them. If they reveal something true, practice them until the truth is so obvious, so undeniable, so lived, that there's no question remaining. Where are you in this process? What's your actual lived experience? Not your ideas about spirituality, not your beliefs, but your direct felt sense of what's true. Are you willing to practice with the intensity required? Are you willing to question everything, including the one who's questioning? Comment honestly about where you are. No performance, no spiritual correctness, just where you actually are. This helps the whole community, helps us know what's needed, helps you clarify for yourself. Theory is worthless without application. Know everything I've said and remain completely bound, or know nothing intellectually and be utterly free through direct recognition sustained by committed practice. The Mahasiddhas were practitioners. They sat, they did the work. They transformed their being through decades of intensive practice in conditions that would break most modern people. You don't need to match their intensity completely, but you need to meet this with genuine commitment. Make practice a priority. Create the conditions in your life that support transformation. Less social media, less entertainment, less distraction. Spending money on retreats instead of vacations. Going to bed early so you can wake at 4 a.m. to practice. Being misunderstood by friends and family who don't value what you're doing. The sacrifices are real. The path asks everything from you, not as punishment, not as payment to some external deity, but because awakening requires the complete dissolution of the structures that create bondage. And those structures are comfortable, they're familiar. They give you identity, meaning, purpose in the conventional sense. Letting them dissolve feels like death, because it is death. The death of the person you thought you were. The death of the story of your life. The death of everything you've used to avoid the raw truth of existence. What remains after that death is what the Mahasiddhas called deathless. The awareness that witnesses all deaths, all births, all transformations, while never being born, never dying, never changing in its essential nature. What you are. What's aware of these words right now? What's always been here, will always be here, can never not be here because it's not in time or space, but is the condition for time and space to appear. The practices help you recognize this. They clear away the obscurations, the clouds that make it seem like the sun has disappeared. But the sun never disappears. Your nature as infinite consciousness never changes. It's obscured by thoughts, patterns, identifications, beliefs, conditioning. The work is removing the obscurations, and that work is gradual for most people. Moments of clarity followed by periods of confusion, breakthroughs followed by apparent regression, insights that feel complete followed by deeper layers revealing themselves. This is natural. This is the path. You don't achieve some final state and remain there effortlessly. Stabilize the recognition through continuous practice until it becomes your base state, your default, what you return to automatically instead of having to effort to access. The 2-hour daily practice is the engine of that stabilization. Sitting that long, maintaining awareness through resistance, through boredom, through pain, through the mind's endless attempts to escape, builds the muscle of presence, rewires your nervous system, clears channels at the subtle level, dissolves karmic patterns through awareness. Without that commitment, spiritual seeking becomes tourism. Visiting different teachings, sampling different practices, collecting experiences and insights like souvenirs, but nothing fundamentally changes. You remain the same person with a spiritual identity overlay. Meditating 20 minutes some mornings when you feel like it. Reading books about enlightenment, peak experiences at workshops or on substances. None of that is transformation. Transformation requires sustained intensive practice over long periods. No shortcut. Just showing up every single day and doing the work. The Mahasiddhas knew this. That's why they practiced in isolation for years. That's why they gave up everything. That's why their stories include such extreme circumstances. They were demonstrating the level of commitment required to go all the way to complete awakening in one lifetime. Most practitioners don't need that level of intensity to benefit tremendously from the path. Most practitioners can maintain jobs, relationships, normal lives while establishing a solid practice that gradually transforms everything. You get out what you put in. The path to becoming a living God, to recognizing your divine nature, to achieving what the Mahasiddhas achieved, is available right now. The techniques accelerate the recognition. The view frames it correctly. The commitment sustains you through the difficulties. But the recognition itself, the moment when you see clearly what you are, is available in this moment, before the next thought arises, in the gap between breaths, in the space that holds all experience while being touched by none of it. Look now. What's here before thought? What's aware? What are you truly beneath every story, every identity, every belief? Don't think about it. Look directly. Rest as what's looking. The Mahasiddhas lived this recognition so completely that their bodies transformed, that the elements themselves obeyed them, that they demonstrated mastery over the building blocks of reality. They showed what's possible when consciousness recognizes its own infinite nature and embodies that recognition fully. They became gods because they were willing to practice with total commitment until every obscuration dissolved, until only the truth remained, blazing and obvious and ordinary as the sky. You have the same potential. You are the same consciousness. The only difference is recognition and stabilization. They saw it clearly and never looked away. They practiced until the recognition was permanent, unshakable, constant. The same is available to you. It requires everything. It offers everything.